Welcome to Wiretapped Truths. My name is Jesse Lewis Perez, joined by Mr. Wiretapped Truths Leland, the comedian of the show, Jack Simmons, and today, very special guest. We did this for the production designer, but I want to,
Yeah.
because the person who took us behind, the person who brought the dialogue. So this is so cool to me.
Oh,
Joy Kecken, Joy Lusco,
yes.
Kecken,
Yeah,
Joy Lusco
I
Kecken.
I think I got married midway through The Wire, like second or third season.
Mm.
So like my name changed. Like in the beginning I was Joy Lesko, and the second half I was probably Joy Kecken. I don't know. So I
So
just wanted to put both because
yeah,
some people are like, "What are you like? What's
oh,
you
that's
know?"
awesome.
It adds to the intrigue of the person.
And
I'm gonna
and I'm here because Alonzo, like
yes,
Alonzo is
thank you, Mister.
amazing, and yes, he's amazing. I reunited with him. I think we lost touch after The Wire, but I ran into him in LA, and we've been close ever since. So,
Wow.
So the funny thing with that, right? We were watching season two, and
hmm
Leland kind of said, this is like the funniest season, and I said, I was like, I'm like, it does have like a different kind of sense of humor, I think, from the other seasons.
yeah,
If you
yeah, of
know what I mean.
course, yeah,
So I looked up the writers for season two, right? And
yes,
and and I mentioned on the show, I said, this lady Joy, who I think I it's either her or Rafael Alvarez. You
oh,
guys were the two
Raphael
writers,
is
right?
notorious,
Right.
notorious.
So
He's so funny.
I was like, it's got to be her sense of humor,
No,
and I
no.
mentioned that to Alonzo, and Alonzo's like, I just bumped into her. He's like, she's working. So oh, but I want to start off with this too because I
Mhm.
want to you mentioned the fandom, so
Yes.
I'm hoping that you're surprised by this one. Did
Okay.
McNulty ever give you back your car after he
So we
smashed
crashed. So my car, just to explain, my car is McNulty's hero car, and we crashed it right in I think season 4. I'm so
Season two, episode 8, right?
Oh, I
Yep.
thought it
That's
was season 4. Oh,
Season
okay.
4, he was sober.
Oh,
what.
oh
Yeah.
God. Oh, you're right. You're right.
We
Okay.
got you covered. We got you covered.
Oh, I'm so embarrassed.
We
Oh, wait,
literally
wait.
just
I'm
reviewed that 1
blushing.
week
I'm
ago.
so embarrassed. But David felt sorry for me because I was always like poverty stricken. And since he's known me, like I've known him since Homicide Life in the Street. So I used to be a PA for the writer's room for Homicide, I think. And so I drove everyone around. I picked them up from the train station, all the directors, et cetera, et cetera. And I still have this car, this blue green Chevy Cavalier. And when we got to the wire, he was like, okay, poverty person, you, you gonna be, this is gonna be McNulty's car. And so when we crashed it, and I was on set that night, and it was like they did a little funeral for it. But basically, the Teamsters put it on a block. Like it's not my car. It wasn't my car anymore, essentially. I
Okay.
drove it everywhere, but once they crashed it, it was HBO's. And so they kept it because they never knew if they needed it back. And we had like this lot on Pulaski Highway that we owned, I guess, or we rented. And if you drove past it, you'd see the car like still crashed up. Like they never touched it they put it on blocks, and it was hilarious. I would drive by it sometimes and just be like, there's my car. um, and I've like years later, I don't know why. I don't know if we still rented that lot or whatever, but years later, I ran into someone and they're like, "Yeah, you never know when we're gonna have to bring that back. It's still there. It's still there." Only in Baltimore. Only in Baltimore. So no, I don't have the car, but I missed it tremendously. I cried when they crashed it, and that was the last of it. And he was like, "Is this gonna force you to get a new car?" And I guess I did. I must have, but
You
So
had
did
to.
they purchase
Did
it
your
from you though?
insurance
Did you
go?
get compensated for it?
they gave me a little bit. Yeah, they always paid me when they had to use it for the day or whatever. So it was just like a little bonus thing, and I was very very grateful for it. And at the time, I never would say I was frugal because I am terrible with money, but I would put it aside. Like I knew that one day I would have to buy a new car.
Another car.
But I'd had that thing for at least 10 years. You know?
You all created Turo before Turo. Look at that.
I
I'm
know.
just imagining going to the mechanic afterwards and then just be like, what the hell did you guys do on set? Like, how?
Because it looks so bad. Oh my god.
So bad, man. I never washed it. I never
not even the aesthetic. I mean, after he crashed it, like it's what like it looked.
Well, since you were,
it was rough. They towed it away. Like we all were like goodbye.
since you were a writer for that episode, can you tell us what was McNulty doing, getting back in and doing it again? Was he recreating the scene? what was the mind of that?
Once wasn't enough. It was just this sense of like he's so he just gets so fixated on things, right?
He's so jaded. Like
Yeah.
He's trying to measure. He's like
He's like the sense of like, how that one scene where they were like, fuck. And Ed Burns wrote that scene, and it was just a sense of like, he's always trying to get the right. He can always figure out where the bullet came into which, and he's just trying to get it right. He's just trying to get it right.
He was a perfectionist in his own way. Yeah. That's what made him interesting. I always thought. Yeah,
it was hilarious.
That's one of the scenes that highlights his character. It's like,
yes,
he's a crash out. Like
100%. And it's funny because you had Vince on. I saw that episode. It was a great episode. And so Vince, just a little backstory.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Vince was my landlord before I got on the wire. I don't know if he ever knew that because we dealt with his wife. My friend, my roommate was friends with them and worked with them occasionally. And she got the place, and it was above like an antique shop that I think they owned. So they owned the little building, and our rent was $300. I only paid $150.
Wow.
And I could barely afford that. We were always scrambling to pay. And I always think I hope we weren't late, but I think we were from time to time. And so when I first met Vince, I was like terrified, like, oh my God, that's my
landlord.
I know. I was like, oh my God. But he had this beautiful home in the middle of Little Italy in Baltimore. And it was like a compound, and all of the directors would go, like he would host the directors for an evening of wine and cheese and tour his beautiful grand house. And then he would go over the locations for The Wire or Homicide or whatever. And so I started off avoiding this man like the plague. And by the end of it, I was directing on the 5th season. And when I got the invitation to his house, I was like, oh, I knew I made it. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. And his house was so like when people say they have beautiful houses, and like, you haven't seen Vince Perani's house, And
I actually sent it to the guys the other day. What was the name of it? It's it's huge. It's on Google. I forgot the official name for it. I have it.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
it's a Dallas something. Is that?
Yes. Yeah,
Dallas?
that sounds right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
the palace on Dallas.
Yes, it is.
Palace. Thank
you. It is a palace, and and I used to like be very much like, what does he need this $150 for? When I got there, I was like, wow, he could barely buy a bottle of champagne with this little bit of rent money. I was so mortified. But he was a great designer, and Alonzo was a great costume designer. And one of my roles on The Wire was to always call them ahead of time to kind of let them know, like, what to expect for the episode. Because David was very specific about where we would shoot. Like in the writer's room, he would be like, okay, this convenience store is on this corner of this neighborhood, and so, so people wouldn't waste their time because we have very limited time to produce it. I would just kind of take notes, and like right before a location scout or something, and just say like, this is what to expect, blah, blah, blah. So I used to do that for pretty much all the department heads and casting. And one day in the room, I think I had done a scene, or I don't know if this is one of my episodes, but basically I wrote the scene with Ziggy's getting his coat. I think it's very expensive. Like, I think we mentioned it as like a $2,000 coat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
2020. Yeah, $2,000 coat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which we asked Miss Donna Adrian about it, and it was really 400 from yeah.
$500.
Yes. So Adriana was like styled me for a couple of events. I love her. She's so sweet. So so I must have. So whenever David's a great showrunner, and whenever you get a scene from him, I can't remember if this was in one of my episodes or if I just kind of contributed to someone else's episode, but in the scene, it was not supposed to be written that way. And I have a tendency to go rogue. Like, some writers are very great about like, this is what was pitched in the room and this is what you deliver.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never been that way. So before you publish a script to the cast and crew, usually the writers kind of give their take on it. And so I guess we were in one of those meetings with this scene, and I won't name any names, but the writers were like, wow, this impacts my episode. And what? And David's kind of like a referee sometimes. If there's no harm, no foul, no foul, no harm, right? And so he was just kind of watching, and I was making the case for it. I was like, he's a young guy, and he's going to go and blow his money like I do, like, and luckily, like, and I'm bringing up all of these beautiful actors who are now dead, who I love, love, love. But like Michael K. Williams, and this is kind of, I think he's put this out there. Like, I think this has been in articles. I don't think I'm talking out of turn, but he was like, he wasn't that it was written out of season 2, but he, was scaled back in a way that he wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I know David spoke to them all, but he like had blown all of his money, like from the first season. He was expecting, to get paid the same.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big lesson for him. He would go on to say, like, he learned to save his money after this experience. He took on a lot of roles. He did a lot of investment. But in this moment, like, I think he might have spoken to David like, man, when am I going to get back on the screen? Because it's tough out here, And so I think in the back of his mind, he was like, yeah, young people do this. They don't understand that it could all go away at any moment,
Mm-hmm.
You only have like a shot for so long, right? It's
Right.
Yeah, you got to make the most of it.
Yeah. So, and you can't, like, it's a very, fickle business. So, and it's very feast or famine. And
the fact, Joy, that every season you all didn't know if you were coming back the next season. I think that to me is so amazing. Like,
well, that was the, like The Sopranos was the top, show for HBO.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were like a stepchild. Like, we were in Baltimore, and
Mm-hmm.
no one from HBO ever came to visit us. Like, we didn't have the kind of relationships that I think other shows had with their executives. And we went on a hiatus after season 2 for a year,
Wow.
Or was it season 3? No, it must have been season 3. So we went.
See, I didn't know that because I watched it. It after season 4 already.
Right, yeah. Of course. Like, why would you know that? And that's very kind of insider information. But you know, it was like people were just like Michael, like we were really struggling. And at that point, you know, like I'd had my baby, like I called David up and I was like, I have a family to feed. Like, what
Right.
is plan? You know? So it was hard. It was hard being on that show for many reasons, because it was never, you know, and we always knew that, like from the very beginning. Like, I don't think we even had cheers for the actors the first season. You know? Like, we were just running and gunning. So it was not ever treated like a show that was going to be on for 5 seasons. Let's put it that way.
Let me ask you something too, Joy. Just curious, because just knowing some of that stuff about just season to season and the lack of support that you all had.
Yeah.
How do you think, if you all had the support, let's just say it was 5 seasons or 6 seasons, however long it was David Simon was gonna run the show. How do you think things would have been different if you all did have maybe a little bit more support? Because the art to the fans, we don't know. Like, you know, like this beautiful show came from such uncertainty, you know. Well, we do, because, you know, we obviously, but most fans don't know that. Like,
right. Well, I mean, in my opinion, we would have gotten awards. Right? Like, we never got an Emmy. You know, we never, you know, David always saw 5 seasons. He was very clear about that in the Bible that got published on the internet. He always knew what it looked like. He always had the image of that. And so that was never a question, right? But for the business side of it, and there is a business side to the business, is, you know, will we be given more money season to season, you know, in terms of our budget, in terms of being able to meet our schedule? You know, we had a massive cast. Like, Alonzo had to dress so many people.
Yeah.
We had to, you know, like, sometimes I would get to set and, you know, most people would come, or the extras or whomever would come in their clothes, you know, and I'm like, but, you know, this clashes with, you know, Vince's set design or whatever. And they would be like, well, that's all they brought. Like, what, you know? So it's like, we just had we needed so much more money. And so that was, to me, it was always a question of that type of production, wanting just more money on the screen, and, you know, wanting a publicity department, you know, to really, and it's not like we didn't, you know, push for that. You know, I remember, like, because David would take me sometimes, especially to the local press stuff. And I think I went to, like, the NAACP Image Awards and represented for that one year. But, like, you know, it just could have been better. And it could have been much easier for especially our Black actors who, you know, it's just harder to get roles. And, you know, for them, I personally wanted to kind of cape for them a lot more, to just let people know. Like, I can't even tell you, man, like, you mentioned, like, what people didn't know, but, like, no one knew that Idris was British.
Right.
Like, people would, like, for years, like, I don't even know what he was on. Like, it was years later before they knew he was British.
That's
and
hysterical.
I'm like, what? Wait. And I realized, it's like, oh yeah, he never did a real interview, you know, during the time that we.
And now that people, like, pick up on it, now you could hear his accent come out if you, like, pay attention.
Totally.
When he's angry, you know, like, you hear the British come out, you know.
In season 3, when him and Avon fight, you can, like, the scene was so intense, and he had, like, spit coming out his mouth. I would, as a director, I'd be like, yeah, let's leave that one in. That was, we can't recreate that, can we? Like, you know.
But that was kind of, it was, so I did a lot of post-production. What is it called? I'm sorry, I'm blanking on everything. Basically, I did the thing with the actors when we corrected their accents, you know, so McNulty would come in and we would have him reread the line to, you know, at least get closer to an American accent.
Less British. Less British Dominic.
Yes. And the same with Idris. And Idris would come in and we would we would work on it. But sometimes it was like, for the editor, like we still wouldn't hit it into the right tone or whatever, and they would have to choose the British version. And we were in that booth for so long. And they're great actors, but it's like, it's just bound to happen. And
it's rare though. I mean, you have to really be a real fan to catch those instances of it being like, wait a minute, he sounds a little different. You have to really be tapped in because it's so rare in his 3 seasons. Like, I think it's that I know Joy, twice. I think like that I know.
Oh, that's very sweet.
That's true. You mentioned like sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
Well, okay, real quick. I have a theory about season 2, and I want it answered because the guys looked at me like I was crazy when I came up with the theory. And but Facebook, I had some people agree with me. I think that Spiros was gay. And
that's right.
He had and he had a crush on Nikki. So maybe I'm wrong because you're laughing.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think that's why you should write fan fiction.
Because he was like, well, at the end with the Greek, he goes, the Greek says, well, then what, Leland, you know the line perfectly.
Then I would have had a wife.
Yeah. And then you should have been a father. And then he said, well, then I would have had to have a wife. Yeah. And I was like, wait, is Spiros gay? And then that's why he always has like this look at Nikki, like admiration to him. I
just thought he was saying that just means I would have had to been married. I ain't even think like, maybe like, and then the stuff for Nikki, I never thought like,
right.
So Joy, am I crazy?
Spiros gay.
Go with whatever interpretation you feel you should go with. As a writer, I never ever want to put that in a box. And it's not just the intention, right, of the scene, but the actor picking up on whatever. The actor could have played it that way as well. And I do think they create their own kind of character bio for that. And so I'm not going to say it's wrong or right.
Okay. All right, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, it's like a song. You're going to interpret the song one way, I might interpret it another. I don't think either one of us are wrong.
And The Wire is a perfect show to do that with, right?
Right. Agreed.
You know what, though, Jesse? As we talked with Joy about Spiros, he might be a great character analysis episode. That might be a great, as we sit and talk about it out loud.
Yes.
He might be the second one we should do after voting.
Yes.
That's interesting.
So, and then I guess my second question, you'll leave into interpretation too, but it will be how was Sergei able to keep the connect with the Greeks if he ratted on them?
Well, okay, so like you have to understand the criminal nature, the nature of a criminal organization, in the sense of like everyone is looking out for their own self-interest, right? So like he is basically gathering intel for many different people from many different people, and he can't be the only rat in the organization, in my opinion, right? So it's like, I think it's just really, really complex, and the sense of like who else was part of that sting, right?
Because there's a bunch of people that got arrested,
right? And so you have to understand, like yes, there's some people who are loyal, but then there are others that, I'm sure he was given a cut to them as well, and it just, to me, it makes sense, and when you like, in the case of at least certain storylines that we chose through The Wire, it's like we always had like the transcript from certain cases, like when you really do a deep dive into like the real authentic
cases,
kind of stories that we pulled from. It's like then you would understand it more, because it's a vast network, and it's much more clear that like everyone is kind of out for themselves.
And my friend Rel, shout out to my friend Rel, he gave me this question. Was season 2 based on a real case? Because we know season 1 was based on Avon Barksdale was a real person.
Totally, yeah. Yes, and I'm blanking on what. I'm sorry, I can't remember what that was, but we were the first. We were the first to get on the dock. Like, I think in filming in Baltimore, like it was very rare to allow a production to come
on the
the docks to go into the can. Like, that just would never be permitted if that hadn't been close enough to what was really going on for the federal government to permit that. Like, I do think whatever, because now that I say all this, it's like, what was the name of this case? But whatever it was close enough, even if it wasn't a real case, it had to have been close enough for them to say, like, we need people to know this was going on, and for them to permit us to film. And they gave us a tour. So part of the reason season 2 to me was such a great experience and one of my favorites, it's because, unlike most productions these days, David actually got permission to research for 3 months. Like, that in itself was so rare.
To research the docs and stuff.
We had to. So Raphael, his father was a dock worker, and so Raphael was hired to kind of bring the authenticity to that experience, and his connections got us to basically have these meetings with all these former workers, right? And Raphael was also very close to David because they worked together at the Sun, and as a reporter, you know, he had interviewed just tons of people in Baltimore in general, so his voice was just very Baltimore, you know. And then through, I'm sure, David's connections and Ed Burns' connections was how we toured, how we got onto the actual dock. That was incredible. I'll never forget that night. And then I was in charge of Kima's storyline, and we interviewed a lot of, there were, at the time, you know, being a lesbian was hardcore, you know, and to get these women to meet with us at the LGBTQ Center, which was very rare at the time to have, but Baltimore had one. And we went in, and they really opened up about how they felt about getting pregnant and being married. And so just the time that's spent to get these organizations to kind of open their doors, like, it was just unbelievable. And it was just something I never forget. And we, and it was the first time David and Ed had gotten like a writer's room, because they didn't even give him one the first season. So the second season, I was on like as a story editor or something. And we had these, it wasn't at David's house. I don't think this is right. It doesn't make sense that we would be at his house, but we must have had these offices in Federal Hill, and we would walk to the market every day, or most days, for lunch. And I just remember we came out of this row home, and we crossed the street, and instead of like getting to the sidewalk, we just walked down the middle of the street. And this was after like a couple months of all of our research, and we were really cooking in the writer's room. And we were walking down the middle of the street like high noon, like we had like guns, on their side or something. And I just felt like the baddest fucking writer bitch in the world. I'm
scrolling through Baltimore.
This town ain't big enough for the 2 writers.
Yeah, I was like high on my own supply. It was just the coolest moment. Like we took over that street, and I was like, yeah, I'll be bad.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
You're responsible for, or you were a writer for, I think, 3 of the most genius episodes. See, you wrote the aftermath, right, of Kima shooting. You were on that. I saw on IMDb.
Yeah, that was a very complicated thing.
Well, she was supposed to die first, right?
Yes.
So you were okay. Did you write? Is there a script out there? Is there a script out there that exists with her death? And is that in your possession?
So probably not anymore, because that was my first draft, and we delivered it to HBO. And in all fairness, Carolyn Strauss, who she was an executive who really did support the show and really did love it. And she rarely gave notes, and she called David up and said, this is how she put it? She's like, this is a character we've never seen before. Black lesbian cop who can hold her own on the streets. And that's never been written in the history of television, and you're going to kill her off, And
that's powerful.
Yeah. And so David was like, yeah, we are. and she convinced him to think about the note. And
it's hard for David to change his mind too, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes. So we were given 3 days. We broke the room up, and he didn't really technically have a room, but it was like the freelance writers and some of his friends who would come in and out of the room from time to time. And he and Ed Burns, he got us all together and split us up and said, you're pro killing her off and you're not, and you better find the reasons that like medical reasons that she could survive this gunshot wound, because he was like, I'm not going to not shoot her, right? And so I must have landed on the keep her alive side, and the research was just, it was like 24/7 of calling all these doctors and stuff, and it was wild. So that's what I remember, and it was tough. It was tough to be in a position. And again, when you change things, there's repercussions and it cascades into other episodes. And so already there had been so many changes because of something else that had happened. We moved some things around. And so at this point I had rewritten things so many times, and I have no perspective on these earlier episodes, because I was just the fact that it was a lot. It was a lot.
That's one thing that I've never thought about. You brought up how on a big show, there is all these staff writers. So you got 10 different opinions, and so it's how do you, and then of course you have the showrunner who's the,
yes. Well, it's always what David wants, right? He is he at the end of the day, he's a great showrunner. He's very calm. He's very passionate about getting things right. And he taught me so much. I wrote a scene for him. Because you contribute from you contributed in other episodes other than your own, right? So it's I like to share the credit, because it's sometimes it's a team effort, when it comes to the scripts. But it's I wrote a scene for one of his episodes where D'Angelo is talking to his mother and pretty much accusing her of being a bad mom or something, and it's a jail scene. And, he was very clear about the beats that he wanted for the beat being the intention of the scene that he wanted for the scene. And I just remember like coming to his office, and he was in the middle of writing, and he was trying to publish very quickly, and he just, he didn't want to spend a lot of time writing the scene, and he called me in, and I was very honored, that he asked for my help. And so he's telling me the beats, and I'm like, and I walk a little bit down the hall to my office, and I get in, and I shared an office with Raphael, and Raphael is hilarious. So like, I don't take any comic, like I like to make David laugh, but I'm not a comic genius like Raphael. So, so I walk into the office, and at that moment I was like, I know exactly how I'm going to write this, and it's not what David wanted. Like it wasn't, and I wrote it very quickly, and it was essentially like more or less the scene that's in the show, right?
It's a beautiful scene, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. And it was pretty much my life, right? Like my mom, I was very young, and I had this bully, and the bully came to the door and was like, I'm going to beat your ass. And my mom was like, go ahead, go out there and deal with it. Right.
Wow.
And I was like, damn, that's harsh. And I walked out, and the girl beat my ass. Full nerd girl. And I just remember going back inside and being like, Ma, and she was just like, yeah, you got to learn how to defend yourself, and like, that is the lesson of the streets, right? Like, even though I lived like in kind of a middle-class existence, my grandmother lived, I want to say like 2 blocks over, and she was in public housing, like we ate government cheese when we went and visited her.
Wow.
And I loved going over there. And, so like my mom was, like hardcore. And so I basically rewrote that memory, and I delivered the pages, or maybe back then you put it on a flash drive or whatever. And I went into like the kitchen, which was like kind of across from David's office. And I just sat there in the corner and waited. I'm like emotionally ate like tons of snacks, just freaking out. And he never said anything. And I must have stood there for like an hour.
Wow.
And he finally comes out of the office, and I'm like, hey, I'm waiting for him to say like, you're fired. You didn't deliver what I want you to deliver. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? And he's just like, what? We published. I'm like, what? You published? And because I've been in the kitchen, like I didn't know that my script was probably on my desk. And, like, I was like, oh, I could have known by now, like that. I said, so, did the pages help? Like he was like, yeah.
So he loved it.
He was never going to say that, right? He's not that kind of guy. And I needed that, like all my daddy issues and stuff. I was like, just tell me it was good, And he could kind of see that. And he was like, Joy, he's like, if I didn't like it, you wouldn't get paid. Like
fair.
Like, you're getting your paycheck, right? And I'm like, yes. Like, I was a mess.
That's the closest you can come to like, I'm proud of you.
Like, he was like, yeah, your freaking screen that you didn't write properly is in the script,
From what I'm gathering from these interviews, it seems like that was more David, and Ed Burns was the one who say I loved it kind of deal. Would that be accurate? Yeah.
Well, I think Ed was more like a teacher, right? Like Ed was self-taught as a screenwriter. He'd been a cop for, oh my God, I don't even know how long, like most of his life. Or he'd been a school teacher, and then he'd been a cop. Because for the 4th season, like right before, I want to say like after the 3rd season ended, I must have taken Ed. Ed took me up to his old school, I think, and we did a tour of his school. because he was thinking about, the fourth season and the kind of storyline of that season.
What school was that, by the way?
I don't remember the name of it. It's near Johns Hopkins.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So when I say like it was in the heart of the crack epidemic, like, and it's a big school, and I should know the name of it, but like I said, my memory is gone. But we did a whole tour of it, and he was kind of nodding along, and his thing was always like to me, he was always like, just have fun with the scene, like loosen up. And he was always being very kind and instructive to me. And I really needed that kind of reinforcement. Because, I was, they called it in Hollywood, it's like your lower level or your upper level, and I was the lowest person on the totem pole. And I was the youngest person, like the guys, and I was the only Black woman. And the guys all had families, and they were all of a certain age. And I was like an outsider in many ways, and so for me, it was like, I kind of always went on my instincts with my writing, and Ed was very technical, and he was obviously pushing the school storyline. We talked a lot about Amsterdam he really helped me with the whole burner research of it all and understanding that, and just making me more comfortable, kind of being out in the world. I remember like being on set, and because I covered set for them a lot, and one of the extras had started writing, like we had this big scene where they were counting money, and I think the women were like in their underwear or something, and someone was kind of running the money counter, and this extra started like putting the numbers down like you would, like any normal person would do. It was because of Ed that I went up to the second AD or the first AD, and I was like, you don't write things down in a criminal organization. Come on now.
That's the funniest line in season 3.
Yes. And I think it was out of me coming back and telling them that, that was,
wow.
It was just
that's a genius scene right there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you taking notes on a criminal conspiracy? Like,
yeah, like
that's a genius
crazy
scene. Genius
Such
scene.
attention to detail that really like makes it stand out,
Yeah.
I was
really like that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask, like, because I was wondering, you said he knew about the dock. Did you have any knowledge about like dock workers and anything?
No.
Okay, I was, because it's like they're so intricate. I was like, somebody had to have worked on the docks or something. Like
Raphael's dad, like, his whole, and Raphael had gone out to sea when he was probably 18 or something, and it was incredible. Like sitting in on those kind of research sessions were eye-opening for me, and like Fran Boyd and her family. David and Ed had stayed with them kind of a year in the streets. That was the family that was our liaison, to the streets. And, just hanging out with Fran and her boys and stuff, it was eye-opening to me because, like I said, I was kind of middle class most of my life. And, I would go into Baltimore all the time playing basketball, but like when I would see guys on the corner, when I would go and visit my friends, I would just be like minding my business. I just thought they were hanging out on the corner. Like I didn't know they were selling drugs. like it was just part of the thing. And I remember like another like Black writer I would talk to during the time, he would be like, y'all are up here telling our business, on the street. And that's exactly how we looked at it. It was like, you don't talk about bad stuff in the culture like that. you know, and it was like, that was the thing I had to get over, you know, like,
You had to tell the story.
yeah.
You know,
And not ignore it like everyone else was ignoring it, you know.
did you write, because you were a writer for the episode 2 when Bunk gives Omar that speech of it bothers me how far
how far we falling?
yeah. Go ahead, Leland. You know the dialogue.
Do you know
But
that scene, Joy? You know what scene he's talking about?
Describe it for me.
When they're talking on the bench, and it's after one of Omar's his hit women got killed, and Bunk is trying to talk to him, and Omar's like, "Well, you don't really have a witness anymore." You know, he come back on the story, and Bunk was like, "You know, I saw kids out there that were emulating Omar and trying to be Omar, and it just makes me sick how far we've fallen."
Yes. I remember, like, that was definitely something my mother used to say to me.
Did you write that scene?
I think I wrote part of it, and I think David wrote the other part of it. You know, like you have to understand it goes through many different drafts. You know, so like I remember the part that you mentioned, so I must have written that part. You know, because my mother would always. She had a deep shame, you know, for that part of urban living, and you know, and I was just always kind of channeling that, you know, and understanding like you had to have a stance on this.
I'm convinced you were. I'm convinced you were one of the goats in the writer's room.
You know, I was very young, and the things that I did well was always very disruptive. You know, so like I was saying, probably to you before we started recording, it's like I wrote one of the scenes where Ziggy, and you know, rest in peace, like James Renson, and
yeah, we did a tribute episode to him, Joy, too, on our channel. Yeah,
great.
It was great.
He's a great actor.
He was.
I had recently just rewatched Tangerine, and so
that's right. He was in that too. Oh my god,
so great in that.
I completely forgot to bring that up when you guys would love Tangerine. It was fantastic. The whole movie was shot on an iPhone too. It was incredibly made.
Well, he's cool. So before his time. He was such a genius.
He's great in that.
But I wrote the scene where, you know, he got this $2,000 coat, you know, and I remember, like, again, there's another fight in the writer's room about that. And you know, he just, like, there was just some people who were like, what are you talking about? You know, like, you wouldn't be that flashy, you know? And to David's point, like, just him understanding that, yeah, young people just have a different take on things.
Yeah.
You know? And at the time I was very young when I was in that room. And so, you know, I valued, like, the sense of what David must have put up with me, you know, but like to this day, I still do that. I still kind of go off script, and it causes problems. It's like, you know, like Alonzo, I didn't even have the courtesy of calling Alonzo when we made that change and it got published. So he reads the script. He's like, calls me up. He's like, what? We're not expecting this code.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Why didn't you call me? I'm like, I just threw that in. And he's like, wait, where did this come up? And, you know, and
where
like,
am I going to get a $2,000 coat?
Right.
It was so problematic.
I swear my first question to Donna Adrian Gibson was, how much did that coat really cost? $2,000? Because one of the discussions that we harp on the show is it's such an ugly coat. So
right.
They literally had no time to find it. Literally, everyone was mad at me, you know, and I was just like,
and it's such a it's such a legendary scene. Like, it's like the fact that that's off the kilter, off script, like
it was totally, yes, it did not have happened. And
in a way, could you relate to Ziggy being part of, like, you're also the young person on the staff, like trying to make? Did you find yourself like relating to the character at all?
Totally. I totally got it. And meeting James on set as well, like really kind of he had such a kind of energy to him, and it was one of those things of like, he's not going to follow the rules either, like the rule being like, you shouldn't be flashy, right? Like you're in a criminal thing. And that was how they managed to stay so off the radar, was because they just
no
looked
flash.
yes. And so to go against that was just like everything. And I'm like, of course he would, and
his explanation was, I can tell people I'm paying for it on installments. Like, gosh, it's just a coat. But then you look around and it's like, nobody has a coat like that out here, Ziggy. Rest in peace, James Ransom.
Yeah, I know.
When you're young, you try to make a big impression, right? I feel like that's such a Ziggy thing. You want everyone to think like, oh, look at this coat I got. That was always like the heart of Ziggy too.
Yeah. He didn't have like he didn't go out and buy a car, like I never went out and bought a car either. It was just like, here's a designer I've always admired, and and then when you get something like that, it's always disappointing. That's why it was so ugly. We really don't have any taste.
We had Teddy Kanaz on, who played Double G. He says hi, but he says hi, by the way. Yeah. He was like, Ziggy was such a sweet kid, and like it's so heartbreaking, right? Ziggy's story, kind of like who was your favorite character to write for? Like, who did you get?
Such a great question. So I have to say, like, and again, this is Michael K. Williams. He was just so much fun. He was such a lovely human being, and yeah, and I loved and what I loved writing. He was just so I feel like David wrote the scene, but we were talking a lot about the crown scene, where it was like my grandmother's crown, and it was just one of those things of like again about how he embodied Black culture, and how he was just such swagger and stuff. And I just remember like just having the best time talking about those moments with him, like in the room. And I remember like Ed Burns had an idea about like showing Omar at a down low club in Baltimore, like in a fur and everything, and just seeing this whole other side of him that, and there were all these things we wanted to do for his character because we loved him so much, and things that we weren't able obviously to show, but I just remember like thinking like, oh, I couldn't wait to write something like that for him, and,
wow.
And then like for Lance Reddick, so Lance was a sweetheart and as well, and I'm gonna cry. But
it's okay. Let it out. It's okay.
But so Lance and I used to live in this area in LA called Culver City, and Lance lived nearby, and I ran into him at the Trader Joe's. And, he was very healthy. He was a very healthy guy. And so when he died, it was shocking because like he took care of himself, and he had this back problem. And that's why he would always hold himself so upright, and the
posture.
His posture thing was because he was like, I'm going to not let my back give out like this. And he was always very conscious about his diet. And so we ran into each other at Trader Joe's, and he was also a musician. And so he was going to invite me he was hosting like these home concerts at his house. And I was so touched by this. And I had directed him. I think this was his 5th season. And it was a classic scene like that one of the inspirations for The Wire was the conversation. And that film had a classic scene where Gene Hackman was walking around a fountain and the camera pulled back and you get this long shot. And so we did something like that for Lance's scene with his former wife.
He's talking to Marlo, I think.
Yes, thank you. Yes. And so we did the pullback and all that, and we had the crane, and it was such a beautiful scene. But anyway, I was very proud of that scene. And so when I ran into him in LA, we were just kind of going off and on about that. And I realized in my cart that I had nothing but junk food. Like I was a bit of a junk food vegetarian, like in my 20s. And he had this bag of healthy, like fruits and vegetables, like everything was perfect, right? And as we're talking about the scene, I'm like trying to hide my cart behind me. I'm like, oh, like, oh look, oh my God. It's such a writer's moment, but yeah, he was.
What were you eating? What was your junk food of choice?
Oh my God, everything was just processed and packaged. Like clearly I'd never seen a vegetable.
Doritos and
whatever the version of that for Trader Joe's was. Like, it's their own little brand. So it's like, but like they used to have these cookies that were just, it was like chocolate and caramel. Like they were very flat. I don't know what the names are, but it was a pile of those. And it's just bad. It was just embarrassing.
He probably had beets, celery,
I'm like, what is happening right now? I didn't know you could go to Trader Joe's and buy those things.
Hell.
Yeah, I was a mess. But he's so lovely. And but yeah, it was just one of those things of I loved seeing how he would react to certain scenes, and he was all about technical process as well. It was just fun to talk to him as well. But yeah, and then I was on set when Isaiah did his famous line, and I had to like step away because I wouldn't stop laughing. I was not. That was so funny. He was so great.
We did a tribute episode to him as well, Joy, on our channel.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
We want to do one to Robert Colesberry. Can you?
You should.
Can you tell us a little bit, because I don't think a lot of people know how much he actually contributed to the show.
Oh my God, he was amazing. So he brought a lot of young Black directors on board. It was, to me, that's one of his incredible contributions, because that creates careers and opportunities. And so like Seathman, if you ever get him on, he would talk. Robert was his mentor. And so he was, he got on, like, back then you needed someone white to vouch for you to get these gigs. Like they would never trust a Black director to come in, except for Ernest Dickerson, so it's like, Robert finding this kind of talent. Robert was there from the beginning. So to understand the relationship, he was a non-writing producer. And when David got the green light from HBO, they wanted him to have a marriage to a producer that would help him stay on budget, right? Because part of doing a show of the scope with so many different, it was epic. Like if you look at Game of Thrones, they had 4 different houses essentially, north, south, east, west.
Right.
And essentially we did 2. Right?
Yeah. It's funny you said that, because there's some lady on my job that loves Game of Thrones, and I was like, watch The Wire and just think of it as Game of Thrones, but in the hood.
It's true. Yeah, everyone's vying for the top spot. There's a lot of similarities to that.
Yeah. So, it's two different camps. Obviously, the dysfunction between the in the police department, but the dysfunction in the streets, and we understood how big the cast would be from the start, and so Robert was brought in to manage some of that, with his notes to kind of guide that so the show can stay on the air. And he was just he was great on set, and he's just very patient. And David really grew to understand, how vital he was, to the show, because it was a very unusual, at least to me at the time. I just hadn't really seen that before. And, he was just so devoted to the show, and so essential also in post-production. So he was just wonderful, like just his energy and his sense of really wanting to fight for maintaining, to understand, if you're going to have a lot of cultural kind of landmarks on the show, the cast and the crew have to reflect that, and he embodied that, I can't even tell you how many times he must have explained, why things were necessary to people who may not have been presented with that argument before. When you center culture, it's as woke or as liberal as people may believe themselves to be, when it really comes to actually doing it.
Right.
And it was really he really knew how to talk to folks. So and his ex-wife, Karen Thorson, she was a producer on the show as well. So maybe you can get her,
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
I've seen her in the credits. Yeah.
Yeah, and Alonzo, I think, could, I'm up here talking out of turn, but maybe
It's okay.
he could make an intro for you. But yeah, she was great as well. And I just really like there's another kind of unsung hero from the show, which was Laura Schwegman. And she was I always looked at her as a friend, but maybe we were mentoring each other, because
What was her position?
So she was in the writer's office for a minute, but eventually, over the course of the series, and she also went on to Treme with David. So she was. I'm trying to think, what was her title, but she was someone who always managed to broker the environment, understand, to me, she's one of the first people to say hey, you don't need to waste all of these kind of single use plastic bottles on set. She was the one to say everyone can get an assigned cup and we can drink out of this big thing of water tank. And why are we printing all this paper? She was just fabulous. And I think it wasn't until Treme that she it got a green environmental kind of production certificate, because of her work. And she really did kind of start that movement and production. And I know HBO probably never gave her the credit for that, but as a result, her kind of early efforts then got adopted into many different shows. And so, those were, and I mention her because she was very dear to me, and we just lost her too to cancer. And David spoke at her funeral in New Orleans. But the thing about their love of New Orleans, which David and her shared, it was those are the kind of people that he surrounded himself with.
Yeah.
And that speaks a lot to him, and a lot to how much people gave to that show, You know, like the people who worked on that show worked their asses off to deliver.
Yeah, we've heard from the actor who played Prop Joe to help
Oh
with the kids, you know, to Wendell Pierce. I know I kind of follow some of his stuff within the community because he's on another one of my favorite shows, in Power.
Yes,
and I'm going to ask you about that as my final question. But it just does seem like there were people who were on the set, on the cast, even from our executive producer, Miss Donna Adrian Gibson, to Miss Debbie Young. Everybody who's worked on the show seems to just be willing to over contribute to
that's
you know, like is that the right word for it? You know,
over contribute. I like that.
You know, and it just we as fans, some people may never know some of this stuff or never see it, but they're still talking about The Wire 23 years later. You know,
I know
you all never won an Emmy, but as the publication that deems the Nobel Peace Prize every year, if Time magazine can say, hey, this is probably the greatest drama ever, you know, that I don't know if it's necessarily a step above the Emmys, but it's just as prestigious.
You can win the FIFA Peace Prize next year.
Yes, exactly.
And I'll let Jesse talk about something too. I know he's going to mention it about the Emmys. Go ahead, Jesse.
You know what I loved, Leland, or whatchamacallit? It's already cut you off, but it has to do with that whole segment right now because Joy just saw Joy saw the interview with Vincent, and when Leland was like, Leland was saying all those things. What were you saying? That it was like that it was it was nominated for what, Leland?
It's on the publication that publishes the Nobel Peace Prize every year is Time magazine. And Time magazine deemed The Wire the greatest drama ever. Like
so when Leland was telling Vince, like, yeah, you know, this is, and Vince was just like, no, we were robbed.
Screw the Nobel Prize. We can, you know.
I was like, yo, Vince was like, yo, cut that noise. We were robbed.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. Like, like there's, I'm someone who would, I just can't. I think about that part a lot. It's just very strange, you know, not to.
And
you said they never submitted it, right? That was like kind of one of the reasons. Yeah, that's
they submitted it. You know, we had to prepare the scripts and stuff for that.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't ever submitted. It was just, you know, you have to understand the biases from the time. You know,
right?
Yeah, this wasn't valued.
It looks like they're trying to make up for it this September with that new award, the Legacy Award.
Yeah, we'll see. You know.
Yeah. Better late than never, I guess. But no, you're right. It definitely deserved to win, especially when you look back at some of the winners. And, you know, like some of the winners were like, even shows that I like, you know, some of the winners were just like, what, like CSI. And you're like, there's no way this is better than The Wire. What are you talking about? David Caruso and his sunglasses.
I know. It's like, and I think about Idris, you know, like, you know, I can't say enough about these actors and to never have been recognized. You know, and part of it is, you know, the bias that they think, oh, these guys are actually from the hood. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, like, you know, they're acting.
Right.
Not. You know what, Joy? As these are my last two things I just want to point out. So the actor that played Norman Wilson, Mr. Reggie Cathy, okay. He was in season 4. You know who I'm talking about? He was Carcettes. He was the black guy that was like Carcettes. Right.
His campaign manager, I think.
Campaign manager or campaign runner, or I don't know his title. He kept his foot up his ass, basically.
That was his official title.
He won an Emmy for House of Cards.
Yes, that's right.
Now, I always wonder, because I watched House of Cards, I think, the first 3 or 4 seasons. I probably watched them probably like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
I never finished it.
Most of the crew from The Wire worked on House of
Cards. Right. We've heard. But I always wondered, like, did him play? Because in House of Cards, he was a lawn person. I think he did the president's lawn work or something. Maybe I should rewatch it and see. But I always wondered, like, is that why he won an Emmy? Because what he played in The Wire versus playing in House of Cards, like I didn't understand. Like, was his performance that good as the lawn person to get the Emmy? Like, those thoughts were always in my head. Like,
no. You know, it's just, again, it shows you the bias of House of Cards. You know, centered on these white characters,
Right.
and that's what they expected a show to be. And it's like I don't know. I honestly, hate to say like the black tax of it all, but yeah, I don't even know if the Wire performance registered for those voters, right?
At that time.
Yeah. And that's just my,
Well, even still, it's kind of that way where it's like the shows with the the bigger names get nominated, and then it's like, I don't know, the underseen gems kind of just like don't, yeah, it always, the award shows are all bullshit, I always thought.
Yeah. And it's like I do believe it just should have been 007, and for years, and he's too he's too old to be considered, but it's like,
although Sean Connery was old when he played 007.
But I never see Idris mention. I never see Idris really mention The Wire on like interviews and stuff. I don't.
I think again, it's like he is focused on his current body of work. And it's like when you see McNulty out, he's not. It's just everyone kind of moves into their next thing, And
did you see that video years ago of McNulty rapping?
Oh yeah, I sent that to you guys.
Send that one to me.
That's great.
It's funny. It's pretty funny.
I'm not surprised by that. I'm not surprised.
All the comments are hysterical. It's kind of like, oh, McNulty's going real undercover in here.
He's got flow there. He helped out some, I think it was like an established rap group, and I think they said they were huge fans of The Wire from what I read, and they're just like, they asked Dominic West, hey, do you want to rap? And he's like, yeah, why not?
Okay. He's cool. No, we'll have to send it to you, Joy, for
sure. They took him to everywhere in Baltimore.
That video's hysterical.
That poor man.
And Joy,
we're not in Yorkshire anymore.
You worked on one of my favorite biopics, and Get Rich or Die Trying.
Oh yeah.
What was that experience like? That's my last question to you. Like,
I love that. Yeah, I went all over the world with that movie. So David, and so I worked on Homicide, which Tom Fontana ran the show, and then David ran The Wire. And so Tom was asked to come in as a dialogue consultant because the director was Irish and they didn't trust him with the slang. They didn't think he would know slang, but he was he knew more rap music than I did. Right? So Tom passed. He sent the job to David, and David was on an exclusive with HBO, so he couldn't take the job. And it was during our hiatus, and I was very worried about money as always. And he was like, "You should consider this." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I thought he's telling me something bad is about to happen with the show. Yeah. So I went up to New York to interview, and they were lovely. It was the casting director from The Wire, and now I'm blanking on the director's name. Oh my God, Jim Sheridan. And Jim was a great writer, and he had been through a lot in Ireland through the Troubles. And so I was like, "Oh, you got
My
this."
Left Foot, right?
Yeah, he did.
In the Name of the Father, I think.
Name of the Father. So he's a fantastic director. And I was like, "You got this." And I went back home on the train and forgot about it. And then they hired me like 2 weeks later, and I lived for months in Canada and Toronto, and we spent weeks in New York. And then we flew over, did second unit in Ireland with 50. Wow. And I got so 50 would actually record the soundtrack, which is, classic rap songs.
It is.
On our, he would, in the parking lot of our, wherever we would film in Toronto. And so Eminem and Dr. Dre all flew up to see him. And I got to meet them all.
Wow.
And,
I would have fainted.
I managed it. Like Dr. Dre, he like when you meet him, it was almost like you could see like musical galaxies floating around his head. Like he was so intensely like of another planet, right? And so 50 had tricked out this truck into his studio. It was like incredible, like the amount of money he spent on this recording studio. And I got to listen to him build these songs.
Put music together. Wow.
Yeah, it was incredible. And then every morning Jim was kind of notorious for doing this too. He would just rewrite the script practically every day. And so I would do that with him, and we would just go into 50's trailer and just talk about his life. Essentially, it was his life, and
it's a great film. I mean, I love that movie. I think it was
so open and honest, and that truthfulness is what makes that movie. And I always value that time because, on The Wire and Homicide, once you got to set, the script was locked and the actors could not change a word. They were pretty adamant about that. And it was very hard. To me, it's not fair to the actor, completely. And I get it because we've spent a lot of time and energy to get everything right. And you mess something up and it unravels the whole thing. But I understood the need for allowing an actor to do improvisation. But it wasn't until I did that movie, Leland, honestly, like we would spend so many hours rewriting script.
Wow.
And Jim would get to set and just throw it away.
Wow.
So the first day on set, 50 was in the back of the car and he was supposed to give this like 3-page monologue. And Jim was like, don't say anything, just look out the window. And I stood behind that monitor. I'm like watching it. I'm like, what's happening? What happened to all those words that we wrote,
Wow.
And Jim got out of the car. He called cut because I think he wasn't behind the camera, but he was in the car. He gets out of the car and I walk up to him and I'm like, dude, like, what happened?
What happened?
And he's like, it's better. And I said, I agree with that. We always go with a better move. I said, but can we at least get one take so that the studio won't, Paramount won't get pissed or whatever? He's like, I don't have to worry about that. I was like, okay.
I got it.
I'm like, Robert Coolsbury, where you at, brother?
I call the shots.
Wow. Yeah. That's phenomenal. Wow, that's great.
He was a great director. 50 loved him. And
you trusted the actors, right?
I ended up talking to Paramount because, yes, someone did have to answer eventually.
I'm sure. Shit.
But, director needs to trust, like, I like that, though, that he trusted his own vision,
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, especially, and it's the same thing with The Wire, too. It's like, because I'm sure you always get notes from the studio and everything, but it's like, at the end of the day, it is your project, and it's like, you guys do the way you want to do, and, deal with them later.
Totally. And it is your name on it, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, they're not going to remember who produced it. They're going to remember the director and the star, and, and it was 50's first movie.
Yep.
And that's why Eminem came, because he could share like what he went through on 8 Mile, and it's very like nerve-wracking, to expose your entire life. That's what I admire about him. He was very brave, and you do have to be bold like that. So yeah, a lot of stories. I'm sorry, I was all over the place.
No, that's cool. My dad's my dad's a retired cop and from Jamaica, Queens. Where McGriff was at.
Yes.
If you ever write something like that again, I'm sure he'll talk to you if you have any questions about.
I appreciate you. I will definitely reach out because it's like cop shows are coming back. There was time during George Floyd where rightly they were like, no more cop shows.
Right.
I was actually doing a show with Michael B. Jordan where he was producing it, but of course I wanted him to play the FBI agent, in it. And it got canceled because
Wow.
so that was
Because of
kind of
that, wow.
yeah, and I wasn't
bad
like
timing,
I got it. It was, sometimes it's bad timing, like you said. But if I ever get a shot like that, I'll remember you, Jesse. I'll hold you to that.
Yeah, for sure. And my dad loves telling stories, so on the phone. He was and then after that, it was pretty funny because when he first retired, he was like an assistant to the warden, and the jail he was at was like a lot of people that ratted out Supreme McGriff. It was like a holding cell for like where Tekashi 6ix9ine actually went there, but not at the same time that my dad was working there.
Wow, that's notorious.
But it closed down now, but it was like a holding cell for like people who like ratted out, So so he'll got stories for you if you're ever interested. If you ever like do that.
I'm gonna have to take you up on that.
Jesse will be executive producer. You have to give him a credit.
Yes, sir.
Making that connect.
Speaking of people that worked on The Wire, your husband directed an episode.
Yes, he's in there sneezing, ruining the takes here.
Well, God bless you, Scott. And did he so what was that, like a one-off deal, like because it was only one episode, right? Or like how
season 5, right?
Yeah. It was such a beautiful, like, David's given me so many opportunities in my career, so just very quickly, he so when I got out of film school, I went to film school with the guys who did Blair Witch Project and the guys who eventually did Haunting of Hill House and these things, right? And they all went and did independent films, and I went into television. And you have to understand that I felt like it was rough. It was rough. And every show I was on, I vowed I would never lose my voice and do my own project. And I always did a short film during one of the shows I was on. And so I did a short film with Andre Brower when I was on The Homicide, and David and the whole crew got behind that. And they financially helped, the cast helped, everyone helped. And then on The Wire, I had the same thing. I was like, I'm going to do the short. I almost always exclusively wrote for men, except for Kima, and I was like, I have to remember how to do this. And David was so supportive of that. And I say all that because the last thing I expected was him to say, like, yeah, you can, I've seen you do all this directing and you can direct. And I didn't even ask. Like I usually always like went up to him and I'm like, I want to be promoted.
Yeah.
He'd be like, oh my God. Go talk to Nina, go talk to Robert, like get out of my face. But I never said anything about directing. And he had one of his assistants call, or one of the writers might have called and said, hey, we want to check out, your reel, or we want to watch your documentary and we want to watch your shorts. Can you send one of your videos? And I was like, okay. He's like, we're doing research on the A-rappers, who were the black men who drove horse and wagon through the streets selling produce. And I was like, okay, like, why does he need to, like, he knows who these guys are, but okay. And so he submitted the video to HBO. He fought for me to get a slot.
Wow.
And my husband had helped me direct those shorts and stuff, and so he came on board to direct as well, and that's how we got that episode. And it wasn't.
Oh, you guys did the directed what, the prequels? The prequels?
No. It was, we did the whole episode for 503, but
not for attribution.
Yes, but we you mentioned it was a one-off, but really it was like the last season. David always knew it was going to just be kind of a 5-season show, and so like, the fact that like his Clark Johnson, like Ernest Dickerson, like all of these great directors. And it was just beautiful being part of that. And to not even have even put that in his head, just really be sensitive enough to know that was something I've always wanted to do.
And he trusted people that like work, he
Yeah.
saw the potential, which is always kind of amazing.
It was incredible. It was, and again, that's the kind of, that's something I think that was part of Robert Colesbury's legacy. Like it was just David Simon. That's what he believed. He promoted within. He believed in his crew, his writers. He's so generous. So I can't say enough about. Sorry, I'm getting all choked up again. But
no, you're fine. You're fine.
But yeah, it was a tremendous opportunity. It was the best experience. Wendell was so supportive. He was just cracking jokes. And there was a scene that we did with Lance that it was just great talking to Lance. Like Lance is such a pro, and,
he's also got a great sense of humor too.
He's funny.
He's got a great dry sense of humor. I saw him on the Eric Andre show. He's just a very like irreverent guy. Like he's crazy. He's in the best possible way. He's very funny.
He's so great. And
he's like my least favorite character on The Wire, the Daniels, just because it's like because it's the straight man. I like the mess ups. I like the Ziggies. I like like
he was taking risks. He was going out of his way to.
Oh sure.
But he was right in his own way, and he had.
I wish I knew his workout routine too, because
I did too. I did too. He was always
that upper body strength. Like he must have been doing pull-ups every day,
all the time.
Like that scene when he takes his shirt off, I could tell he was like, he was waiting since the first episode for that opportunity.
Where's my love scene?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He wanted that.
It was great.
So all right. So I know you don't got much time left, so I'm gonna pack this all in real quick. I'm gonna go, but I'll end it with a question. Like first, I just wanna, thank you for taking us into the writers' room, like of our favorite show of all time.
This was phenomenal, Joy. Thank you.
Yeah, like I don't think characters from that show can ever be duplicated again, and thanks for bringing to life like people like D'Angelo, Ziggy Sobotka, like people that I know in my everyday life brought to the television screen and have like a little shine on them, so thank you for that. The best written show of all time, I think. So I think you're definitely in the category of that room. So my final question would be, how do you, with so many different writers, how do you get the exact voice of somebody like D'Angelo, of Ziggy Sobotka, of Omar? Like, because it's like their personality doesn't change, but there's like 6 different writers writing for them, right? So how do you keep that dialogue going? Because I would imagine in the movie it'll be a little easier, right? Because you got one full you know what I'm saying? But through 60 episodes, and you get their personality down, and you might not write the same episode this person is writing, so
so part of it is, as a writer who's not the showrunner, like your job is to emulate the showrunner's voice, so like, yes, I bring my voice to the script, but it should sound very much the way David writes. And so like part of like anyone who came, even if they were a freelancer or whether they were on staff, like you read everything that David wrote, from the Homicide to his books, like there's a lot of David's voice, whether it's his, his crazy tweets, like he has a certain way of writing, his syntax, all those things. And so my job is to get as close to that as possible. So that's one part of my job. And that's why I always tried to do my shorts, because I was very concerned about like, I can't lose my own voice. That's what I meant by that, right? I have a way of writing and David has a way of writing. And I need to learn and know his way so that I can do D'Angelo's voice the way that he does it. And so I know that inherently. And the other part of it is in the room, you do an arc of all the characters. And so you'll have a whole board or like a column or whatever for D'Angelo. And so like D'Angelo went through, many different phases of like, being kind of brash and, like not of kind of, of the streets. And then when he went to jail, he had a kind of epiphany, right? And it's like all of these different moments of like figuring out his arc was such that you could identify like when he finally like was about to turn on the organization and his family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you could really see when all of that was happening. And the entire staff like talked about that, but it was David who guided that idea, like because he knows like where he wants the characters to go.
That is a
Like a map
phenomenal
almost.
Yes,
that is a phenomenal
incredible
point that you just made, because we talked about it on our channel. You can kind of see the turning points of D'Angelo specifically, kind of thing.
100%,
Like
right.
almost like when they killed Wallace. Okay, that's one thing that I didn't
Yes.
like. I didn't like that y'all were after him.
Yes.
I didn't want to be in the game.
Right.
And now that I'm in jail and I've got 20 years,
Right.
ultimately I can do what I wanted to do, which is I don't want you to help me get out. I don't like to kill 5 people, somebody that I knew, just so we could get released early. I'm just going to do my time. I'm not going to snitch. This is my opportunity to be away from the game. Like, it's kind of like, it's those moments of his character. His character is another phenomenal character. And we've deemed him the MVP of the first season as well.
Yeah.
I love
Like,
D'Angelo, man.
it's a phenomenal story. He has some really good parallels that you can compare his character and his thought process to. That's phenomenally written.
Yeah, 100%. And he's a great actor, and
he's like the duck too.
Yeah,
That's what's his wings.
But like, for instance, like that was David's vision of that, and when you look at his Bible, it's very clear in the Bible too, like all the characters and the way he broke those characters down. And so like, when I went off to write the scene that I kind of went rogue on with the mother, like David was very clear, this beat happens, this beat happens, this beat happens, because he just knows, what those characters would do. And like, to synthesize all that and still be respected when you also bring something to the table that's not what his vision is, that only adds to it. It's not that I went away from his character. It's just
enhanced it.
Yeah, and went into backstory in a way that he wasn't, expecting. But that was my job. I'm supposed to bring something to the table.
But you also need different voices to, because it's like, of course, as the showrunner, you're going to be the guy that decides like it goes from point A to point B. But it definitely always helps to have different voices and opinions and, from the writers, but also the actors. I mean, it's just everybody, it takes a village, right, to make a show.
Totally. Absolutely. And so, it's like, and that's what I was saying about maybe all the different episodes or scenes that you listed. It's like, oh, I couldn't have done that without David and Ed. Like that's just.
Yeah, but I don't think it's no coincidence that your name is attached to 3 of the best. So.
I don't know. I don't either.
Who decided that the one thing I guess my final question is like, one thing that's interesting about season 2 and is that in a way the villains get away with it in the end. And like, did that surprise you? Were you guys initially like did you want the villains to get caught, or it was very like kind of shocking at first when you see them, because they come so close to catching the Greeks and they get on the airplane. Was that David's vision all along, or did
Yeah. He just didn't want the Law and Order
Right. And I kind of like that person. I think it's more realistic that, like, sometimes they
Absolutely.
just
Yeah.
You're
get
not
away
gonna
with it.
catch everybody.
Totally. And I think he also
Right.
was like behind the whole like, and again, this was groundbreaking television. Like
Mhm.
like you just never saw like, what do you mean the cops aren't right? What do you mean they don't get
Right.
everyone? And it was just like, and the fact that like what I loved about his vision for fifth season was the sense of like, okay, yeah, maybe we were able to shut part of this organization down, but look, Marlo's coming back up. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like it never ends.
Yeah. People just get replaced,
Yeah,
People
cycle of
don't
life
real,
continues. Yeah.
people don't realize that Marlo's ending scene, to which I thought was pretty cool. Yes, it is Marlo's personality, but it's actually a homage to the movie The Gambler. Right? And that's the ending with when he gets cut in it's almost like the same scene out of The Gambler, and everybody kind of like thinks like, oh wow, this is, but I thought that the homage was so cool.
Yeah, they did. Like that's the thing. We had a lot of inspiration from many different classic 70s films.
Oh,
Prince
there's
of
a
the
western
City,
too.
Yeah,
When
yeah. He
there's a
loved all the
western,
westerns. Yeah.
I think when I don't know who it is, but somebody says deserve ain't got nothing to do with it, and Snoop says that. I was like, deserve don't got nothing to do with it, and I was like, oh, that's
Well, also, I'm sure, and I wonder if I can't imagine this is a coincidence. How when Omar is whistling down the street carrying his gun, the very next year in Kill Bill Volume 1, there's the scene where Daryl Hannah's whistling down, and Tarantino. I can't imagine that's a coincidence. I'm sure
Right,
that
right. And I remember like I think we were in the writers' room for Homicide, and we had this whole debate about Tarantino. So like the art influence art, and it was just like we really did talk about like the use of the N-word, by white filmmakers, and it was just this deep conversation. Like, can you get away with that? And it's like, but like the authenticity again of the use of that, on the street and in The Wire. It's like that's a course in itself.
Yeah.
And what that did for television at the time. So it's funny you mentioned Tarantino, and to you being a comedian, it's like one of David's favorite movies is like Duck Soup, and so like,
Oh, it's the best with the
yeah,
Marx Brothers.
yeah. So it's just one of those things of like, once you know that and it kind of peels away the humor, where the humor comes from, like, how to set up those jokes, like it's just one of those things that is invaluable as someone who, like, I can't ever claim to like that the show is David's vision. It's, the scenes are all crafted by what he wants in the show, but ultimately it's like you hope that you can get close to delivering what he wants.
Well, even the conversation you just mentioned, it's like I always thought Rawls seemed like Gene Hackman too. Like it was, But yeah, definitely with the slapstick, I've never thought about that. How he has that very cartoonish sense of humor as well.
Yeah, it's very important to know that, like, about your showrunner and about like, to get out of them as much as you can when it comes to like what has influenced what their kind of creative foundation is. And everyone has a DNA for their show. So like if you look at, say, like Hannibal, like Brian Fuller is very clear about like the interview of the vampire and Anne Rice's books, influencing his writing, and the reason why that police show was so influential as well is because like even for their FBI agent Will Graham, like he wore the same coat that the interviewer wore in Interview with the Vampire, the second one. So like it influenced their costuming, and I'm sure like Alonzo can tell you the same stories as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you, Joy. This has been a phenomenal interview.
Thank you so much, Joy. We appreciate you so much.
Of course. And good luck with your podcast. I'm so happy you all are doing this for the fans. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the show.
A big resurgence now. There's a big resurgence now of the Wire. We think that's because of Wiretapped Truths.
It's all us. Yeah, it's
There's got to be.
I would say TikTok. I don't know. What do you think, Joy? TikTok?
Yeah, I heard. A friend of mine was like, "Oh, you're TikTok famous with your episode," and I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Oh yeah, everything that's popular now is because anytime like a Zoomer tells me about a movie, I'm just like, oh, you saw that on TikTok, and they're like, yeah, that's why it's trending, and that's why they're like, yeah.
That is so funny.
Well, thank you so much, Joy. We appreciate you. We look forward to talking to you in the future. If you have any projects or anything you're working on, please feel free to send them to Jesse, or we'll promote them. We'll put them in the links of all the long videos. So please feel free to send any information, anything you're working on that you want us to put in the description. We'll be glad to. We appreciate your time so much.
Appreciate you all for doing that. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Happy Super Bowl Sunday.
Yes, Benito.
Blessings to you, Miss Joy. Have a good one.
You too. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. This has been Wiretapped Truths. We appreciate it. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. We appreciate all the love, all the support. We just cracked 141,000 views on 520 plus videos of The Wire and Wire fans, Wire castmates, different episodes. So we appreciate all the love moving forward. Thank you all so much. Have a good one.